You don't need to be the loudest in the room, just the smartest one planning. Introduction.
Hi, this is Dr. Julian Vance. We live in a world driven by impulse. Quick reactions, loud opinions, and endless distractions have become the currency of modern life. But underneath the noise lies a hidden advantage reserved for the few: strategic thinking. This is not intelligence alone. It is a discipline, a mindset, a sharpened instinct to move with clarity when others are lost in confusion. It is the ability to see 10 steps ahead while the rest stumble over the next one. Strategic thinking is not born. It is built. In silence. In solitude. In the study of power, history, psychology, and the patterns that repeat across time. The great generals, timeless philosophers, brilliant entrepreneurs, and influential leaders all share one thing in common. They rarely acted without a reason. They played the long game. They mastered not only what to do, but when to do it, and when to do nothing at all. This book is your guide into that world. Each chapter is a weapon. Each idea a tool. You will learn how to plan your moves like a master strategist, influence others without force, and navigate chaos with calm. You will come to understand that every relationship, every business decision, every word you say or hold back is part of a larger game. And those who play it well win without needing to shout. The art of strategic thinking is not about manipulation. It is about clarity. It is about understanding the terrain before you move. About seeing through the fog while others are blinded by emotion. If you seek control over your life, your direction, and your decisions, this book is for you. Now begin. Because the moment you start thinking strategically, you stop being a pawn and start becoming a player. Chapter 1: The Chessboard Mindset. Learn to see the world like a grandmaster, anticipating moves, understanding your opponent, and always thinking 3 steps ahead. Opening Gambit: The Power of Strategic Thinking. Imagine sitting across from a chess grandmaster. As you contemplate your next move, they've already calculated 15 possible sequences, evaluated the psychological state you're in based on your body language, and determined not just how to counter your attack, but how to position themselves for victory 20 moves from now. This isn't magic, it's the chessboard mindset, and it's the foundation of advanced emotional intelligence. The chessboard mindset isn't about manipulation or treating people like pawns. It's about developing the cognitive frameworks that allow you to navigate complex social and professional situations with the same strategic depth that masters bring to the 64 squares. When you understand the patterns, anticipate reactions, and think systemically about human behavior, you transform from a reactive participant in life to a proactive architect of your experiences. Every interaction you have, whether it's a difficult conversation with your spouse, a negotiation with a client, or managing a team crisis, follows predictable patterns. Just as chess positions have been analyzed and cataloged over centuries, human emotional and social dynamics follow recognizable sequences. The person who recognizes these patterns first holds a significant advantage. The grandmaster's perspective, seeing systems, not just pieces. When a novice looks at a chessboard, they see individual pieces and immediate threats. When a grandmaster looks at the same position, they see a living system of relationships, tensions, and possibilities. This shift in perception is the first principle of the chessboard mindset, learning to see the forest, not just the trees. In human interactions, most people operate at the novice level. They react to immediate stimuli. Someone raises their voice, so they raise theirs back. A colleague criticizes their work, so they become defensive. A customer complains, so they rush to fix the specific issue without understanding the underlying dynamics. This reactive approach leaves you constantly playing catch-up, responding to problems rather than preventing them. The emotionally intelligent leader, however, develops what chess players call board vision, the ability to see the entire landscape of an interaction. They notice not just what someone is saying, but the emotional subtext, the power dynamics at play, the unspoken needs and fears, and how each person's response will likely trigger the next sequence of moves. Consider Sarah, a project manager dealing with a team conflict. Two of her developers, Mike and Jennifer have been clashing over technical approaches. The novice manager sees a technical disagreement and tries to arbitrate based on the merits of each approach. But Sarah, applying the chessboard mindset, recognizes a deeper pattern. Mike feels his expertise is being questioned by a newer team member, while Jennifer feels dismissed because of her relative inexperience. Sarah doesn't just address the technical disagreement. She understands that Mike's need for recognition and Jennifer's need for respect are the real pieces in play. She creates opportunities for Mike to mentor Jennifer while giving Jennifer a chance to lead in areas where she excels. By addressing the underlying emotional architecture, she doesn't just solve the immediate problem, she strengthens the entire team dynamic. Pattern recognition, the chess player's secret weapon. Chess masters don't calculate every possible move from scratch. Instead, they recognize patterns, configurations of pieces and pawn structures that they've seen thousands of times before. This pattern recognition allows them to quickly identify the key elements of a position and focus their analysis on the most promising continuations. Human behavior follows patterns just as predictable as chess positions. The angry customer who starts by attacking the product but really wants to feel heard. The team member who agrees to everything in meetings but never follows through because they're overwhelmed. The boss who micromanages when they're under pressure from above. When you develop emotional pattern recognition, you can diagnose the real issues quickly and respond with surgical precision. These patterns exist at multiple levels. At the individual level, each person has characteristic ways of handling stress, conflict, and change. At the interpersonal level, certain combinations of personality types create predictable dynamics. At the organizational level, companies tend to respond to challenges in ways that reflect their culture and history. The key to developing this pattern recognition is what psychologists call deliberate practice, actively analyzing your interactions after they occur. Just as chess players study their games move by move, emotionally intelligent people reflect on their conversations and relationships with analytical rigor. What triggered that person's defensive response? What could I have said differently to achieve a better outcome? What patterns am I seeing in how this team handles conflict? The three-move principle, thinking beyond the immediate. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of the chessboard mindset is learning to think in sequences rather than isolated moves. In chess, every move sets up future possibilities and constraints. A seemingly innocent pawn push might be preparing a devastating attack 5 moves later, or creating a weakness that won't be exploited for another 20 moves. In human interactions, the three-move principle means always considering, what will this person's likely response be to what I'm about to say or do? How will I then respond to their response? In what position will that leave us in for the subsequent interaction? This sequential thinking transforms how you approach difficult conversations. Instead of just blurting out your frustration or delivering criticism directly, you choreograph the interaction. You consider how to frame your opening statement to minimize defensiveness, anticipate the most likely objections or emotional reactions, and prepare responses that move the conversation toward your desired outcome. Take David, a sales director who needs to address poor performance with one of his team members, Lisa. The direct approach would be to simply state the problem: Lisa, your numbers are down and you need to improve. But David applies three-move thinking. He anticipates that Lisa will likely become defensive and offer excuses. Move 1. His response needs to acknowledge her challenges while redirecting toward solutions. Move 2. This should position them for a collaborative problem-solving conversation rather than a confrontational performance review. Move 3. So David opens differently. Lisa, I've noticed you seem frustrated lately, and I'm wondering if there are obstacles you're facing that I might be able to help remove. This opening invites Lisa to share her perspective rather than defending against criticism. When she mentions feeling overwhelmed by administrative tasks, David can pivot to, that makes sense. Let's figure out how to streamline those processes so you can focus on what you do best, building client relationships. Now they're positioned for a productive conversation about support and solutions rather than blame and excuses. Strategic patience, when not to move. One of the hardest lessons for novice chess players is learning when not to move aggressively. The urge to attack immediately, to resolve tension quickly can lead to rushed decisions that worsen your position. Masters understand the power of strategic patience, maintaining pressure while waiting for the optimal moment to strike. This principle is crucial in emotional intelligence. The immediate urge to correct someone who's wrong, to defend yourself when criticized, or to escalate when you feel disrespected often works against your long-term interests. Strategic patience means recognizing when the timing isn't right for the conversation you want to have, when the other person isn't in the emotional state to hear your message, or when moving too quickly will trigger resistance. Strategic patience isn't passive waiting, it's active preparation. While you're waiting for the right moment, you're building rapport, understanding the other person's perspective more deeply, and positioning yourself for maximum impact when you do make your move. You're also managing your own emotional state so that when the moment comes, you can act from clarity rather than reaction. Understanding your opponent, the art of perspective taking. Chess players spend enormous energy trying to understand their opponent's plans, weaknesses, and psychological state. They ask, what is my opponent trying to achieve? What are they afraid of? How do they typically respond under pressure? This deep understanding of the other player's mindset is often more valuable than tactical calculations. In human interactions, this translates to sophisticated perspective taking, the ability to accurately model how the world looks from someone else's point of view. This goes far beyond basic empathy. It requires understanding not just how someone feels, but how they think, what they value, what motivates them, and what their constraints and pressures are. Most people are trapped in their own perspective. They assume others share their values, priorities, and ways of processing information. They get frustrated when others don't respond as they would, or confused when their logical arguments don't persuade. The chessboard mindset requires stepping completely outside your own viewpoint and seeing the situation through your counterpart's eyes. This perspective taking has multiple layers. At the surface level, you need to understand their immediate interests and concerns. At a deeper level, you need to grasp their underlying needs, fears, and motivations. At the deepest level, you need to understand their mental models, how they make sense of the world, what they pay attention to, and what they tend to overlook. The psychology of pressure, reading emotional states. Chess masters are keen observers of psychological states. They notice when their opponent is becoming frustrated, overconfident, or fatigued, and they adjust their strategy accordingly. Against an impatient opponent, they might choose a slow, grinding strategy that tests their patience. Against someone who's playing too cautiously, they might create complications that force difficult decisions. Emotional intelligence requires similar psychological acuity. You need to become skilled at reading the subtle indicators of how someone is feeling and what emotional state they're operating from. Is this person feeling overwhelmed and therefore likely to be reactive? Are they feeling insecure and therefore needing reassurance before they can engage productively? Are they feeling pressured from above and therefore less flexible than usual? These emotional states create predictable patterns of behavior. Someone who's feeling defensive will focus on protecting themselves rather than problem solving. Someone who's feeling overwhelmed will have difficulty processing complex information. Someone who's feeling unappreciated will be more sensitive to anything that feels like criticism. When you can accurately read these emotional states, you can adjust your approach accordingly. You can provide the reassurance someone needs before delivering challenging feedback, wait for stress levels to decrease before introducing new ideas, or recognize when someone's resistance is really about fear rather than genuine disagreement. Controlling the center, managing the emotional tone. In chess, controlling the center of the board gives you influence over the entire position. Your pieces have more mobility, you can respond more quickly to threats, and you can shift your focus between different areas of the board as opportunities arise. In human interactions, controlling the emotional center, the tone and energy of the conversation, gives you similar strategic advantages. The person who can remain calm under pressure, who can diffuse tension when emotions run high, and who can maintain focus on solutions rather than problems holds enormous influence over the outcome of any interaction. This isn't about manipulation or suppression, it's about emotional leadership. When you can model the emotional state you want to see in others, you create the conditions for productive dialogue. This emotional control starts with self-awareness and self-regulation. You need to recognize your own emotional triggers and develop the ability to choose your response rather than react automatically. You need to maintain perspective when others are losing theirs, and stay focused on your strategic objectives even when the conversation becomes heated or uncomfortable. But controlling the emotional center also requires skill in influencing others' emotional states. This might mean using humor to diffuse tension, asking questions that shift focus from blame to solutions, or acknowledging someone's feelings to reduce their defensiveness. It means being intentional about the energy you bring to every interaction and understanding how your emotional state affects everyone around you. The long game, building strategic relationships. Chess masters understand that some games are decided by a single brilliant tactical shot, but most are won through superior long-term strategy. They're willing to accept short-term inconveniences to gain long-term advantages, to make investments in position that won't pay off for many moves, and to maintain pressure gradually rather than seeking immediate gratification. The same principle applies to emotional intelligence and relationship building. The most emotionally intelligent people are playing a long game. They're building trust, reputation, and influence that will serve them for years to come. They're willing to give up short-term wins to preserve important relationships, to invest time in understanding people even when there's no immediate payoff, and to maintain their integrity even when it would be easier to compromise. This long-term perspective changes how you approach conflicts, negotiations, and daily interactions. Instead of optimizing for winning individual battles, you're optimizing for winning the war. You might choose to let someone else get credit for an idea if it builds their trust and makes them more likely to support you on something more important later. You might invest significant time helping a colleague solve their problem, knowing that this investment will pay dividends in the future. The long game also means thinking about your reputation and how your actions in today's situation will affect how people perceive and interact with you tomorrow. Every interaction is building or eroding trust, demonstrating or undermining your competence, and establishing patterns that will influence future relationships. Advanced tactics, the art of indirect influence. Master chess players rarely attack directly. Instead, they create positions where their opponent has no good moves, where every option leads to a disadvantage. They win through indirect pressure, by controlling key squares and limiting their opponent's options until the right moment for a decisive blow. In human interactions, direct persuasion often triggers resistance. Tell someone they're wrong, and they'll often dig in deeper to defend their position. Criticize their behavior directly, and they'll become defensive. Instead, emotionally intelligent people learn the art of indirect influence, creating conditions where people naturally move in the direction you want them to go. This might mean asking questions that lead people to discover problems with their own reasoning rather than pointing out the flaws directly. It might mean creating experiences that shift someone's perspective rather than trying to convince them with arguments. It might mean addressing someone's underlying concerns rather than their surface-level objections. The key to indirect influence is understanding that people need to feel ownership over their decisions and conclusions. When you can guide them through a thought process that leads them to the insight you want them to have, they'll be much more committed to acting on it than if you simply told them what to think. Defensive mastery, protecting your position. Chess players spend as much time studying defense as they do attack. They learn to recognize threats early, to consolidate their position when under pressure, and to turn defensive positions into counterattacking opportunities. In the realm of emotional intelligence, defensive mastery means protecting your emotional equilibrium, your reputation, and your strategic position when others are being aggressive or manipulative. This requires recognizing manipulation tactics, understanding how people try to trigger emotional reactions, and maintaining your composure when others are trying to knock you off balance. It means not taking things personally even when they're intended personally, staying focused on your objectives even when others are trying to distract you, and maintaining your ethical standards even when others are playing by different rules. Defensive mastery also includes protecting the emotional well-being of your team and organization. This might mean absorbing pressure from above so it doesn't cascade down to your team, or creating psychological safety so that people can take risks and make mistakes without fear of harsh consequences. The endgame, bringing it all together. In chess, the endgame is where technique matters most. With fewer pieces on the board, every move carries more weight, and small advantages can be converted into victories through precise play. In emotional intelligence, the endgame is about integration, bringing together all these strategic principles into a coherent approach to human interaction. The chessboard mindset isn't about becoming calculating or manipulative. It's about developing the strategic thinking skills that allow you to navigate complex human dynamics with wisdom, foresight, and skill. When you can see patterns, think in sequences, understand multiple perspectives, and maintain both short-term awareness and long-term vision, you become dramatically more effective in every area of your life. This strategic approach to emotional intelligence serves everyone involved. When you can anticipate and address underlying concerns, conflicts get resolved more quickly and thoroughly. When you can read emotional states accurately, you can provide the support people need when they need it. When you think systemically about relationships, you create positive dynamics that benefit everyone. The chessboard mindset is ultimately about respect for the complexity of human nature, respect for the intelligence of the people you interact with, and respect for the long-term consequences of your choices. It's about becoming someone who can be trusted with difficult situations because you have the wisdom to handle them skillfully. As you develop this mindset, you'll find that difficult conversations become easier, conflicts resolve more smoothly, and your influence grows naturally as people recognize your ability to understand and work with complex situations. You'll become the person others turn to when stakes are high and emotions are running hot, because they know you can see the whole board and help everyone find a path forward. The 64 squares of a chessboard contain infinite possibilities. So does every human interaction, every relationship, and every challenge you face. The chessboard mindset gives you the tools to navigate this complexity with skill, wisdom, and strategic intent. Master these principles, and you'll find that the game of life becomes not just more manageable, but more rewarding for everyone involved. Chapter 2: The Power of Deliberate Patience. Most people act fast and regret later. Strategic thinkers move with precision, not haste. In this chapter, you'll master the art of timing, knowing when to wait, when to strike, and how to control a situation without revealing your intent. The impatience epidemic. In our hyper-connected world, we've developed an addiction to immediate gratification. We expect instant responses to our messages, same-day delivery for our purchases, and real-time solutions to complex problems. This cultural shift toward immediacy has created what I call the impatience epidemic, a collective inability to sit with discomfort, uncertainty, or the natural rhythms of life and business. But here's what the most emotionally intelligent people understand: true power lies not in the speed of your reaction, but in the precision of your response. The difference between these two approaches can determine whether you become a victim of circumstances or the architect of your own success. Consider the last time you sent an email in anger, made a decision under pressure, or spoke without thinking. How did those moments serve you? Most likely, they didn't. Impulsive actions, driven by immediate emotional reactions, rarely align with our long-term interests or values. They're the emotional equivalent of junk food, satisfying in the moment but ultimately detrimental to our well-being. The emotionally intelligent person recognizes that between stimulus and response lies a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In that choice lies our growth and our freedom. This chapter is about expanding that space, making it a sanctuary of strategic thinking rather than a battlefield of reactive emotions. Understanding deliberate patience. Deliberate patience is not passive waiting. It's not procrastination dressed up in noble clothing, nor is it the paralysis of indecision. Instead, it's an active, strategic choice to create space between an external trigger and your response. It's patience with purpose, timing with intention. Think of a master chess player contemplating their next move. They're not hesitating out of fear or uncertainty, they're calculating possibilities, anticipating their opponent's responses, and choosing the move that serves their ultimate strategy. This is deliberate patience in action, the conscious decision to pause, assess, and respond from a place of wisdom rather than impulse. Deliberate patience operates on 3 levels. Tactical patience. This is patience in immediate situations, pausing before responding to a provocative email, taking a breath before reacting to criticism, or waiting for the right moment in a negotiation. This level of patience can transform individual interactions and prevent countless professional and personal missteps. Strategic patience. This operates over weeks, months, or even years. It's the patience to build relationships slowly, to let your reputation develop organically, or to wait for the right opportunity rather than forcing premature action. Strategic patience is what separates those who achieve sustainable success from those who burn bright and fade quickly. Philosophical patience. This is the deepest level, acceptance of life's natural rhythms and timing. It's understanding that some things simply cannot be rushed, that mastery takes time, and that the most profound changes often happen gradually. This level of patience brings peace and reduces the anxiety that comes from trying to control outcomes beyond our influence. The neuroscience of patience. To master deliberate patience, it helps to understand what's happening in your brain when you feel the urge to act immediately. When faced with a challenging situation, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, triggers a fight or flight response. This ancient mechanism served our ancestors well when facing physical threats, but in our modern world, it often works against us. The amygdala hijack, as psychologist Daniel Goleman calls it, floods your system with stress hormones and narrows your thinking. In this state, you lose access to your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive functions like planning, reasoning, and emotional regulation. You literally become less intelligent when you're in a reactive state. Deliberate patience works by engaging your prefrontal cortex and giving it time to override the amygdala's impulsive signals. This is why counting to 10 actually works. It's not just folk wisdom, it's neuroscience. Those few seconds allow your rational mind to come online and assess the situation more accurately. Research has shown that people who practice patience show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex and decreased activity in the amygdala over time. In essence, patience is a muscle that grows stronger with exercise. Every time you choose to pause rather than react, you're literally rewiring your brain for better emotional regulation. The strategic value of waiting. In business and personal relationships, timing is everything. The same message delivered at different moments can have vastly different outcomes. The same proposal can be accepted or rejected based purely on when it's presented. Understanding this gives you tremendous power. Consider the art of negotiation. Amateur negotiators often make the mistake of showing their hand too early or accepting the first reasonable offer. Master negotiators understand that the person who speaks first often loses, that silence can be more powerful than words, and that the best deals often come to those who wait. This principle extends far beyond formal negotiations. When someone is upset with you, rushing to defend yourself often escalates the conflict. But if you wait, listen, and let them express their feelings fully before responding, you often find that their anger dissipates naturally. Your patience creates space for their emotions to run their course. In leadership, deliberate patience allows you to observe patterns before making decisions. Quick fixes might solve immediate problems, but they often create larger issues down the road. Patient leaders gather information, consult with their teams, and consider long-term implications before acting. This approach leads to more sustainable solutions and greater buy-in from stakeholders. The strategic value of waiting also lies in what it communicates to others. When you respond quickly to every request, you signal that you're always available, potentially diminishing your perceived value. When you take time to consider before committing, you communicate that your time and attention are valuable resources that you manage carefully. Reading the room, when to wait, when to act. The key to deliberate patience lies not just in knowing how to wait, but in recognizing when waiting serves your interests and when action is required. This discernment is perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of emotional intelligence, the ability to read situations accurately and respond appropriately. There are clear signals that indicate when patience is your best strategy. When emotions are running high, yours or others, patience allows temperatures to cool and rational thinking to resume. When you lack sufficient information to make a good decision, patience gives you time to gather the data you need. When others are trying to pressure you into immediate action, patience helps you resist manipulation and maintain control. Similarly, there are times when swift action is essential. When someone is being treated unfairly and needs an advocate, when an opportunity has a narrow window, or when delay would cause harm to others, immediate action demonstrates both courage and care. The emotionally intelligent person develops what I call situational sensitivity, the ability to quickly assess whether a situation calls for patience or action. This skill develops through experience, reflection, and careful attention to outcomes. Each time you choose patience or action, you gather data about what works in different contexts. One helpful framework is to ask yourself 3 questions before deciding how to respond. First, what is the cost of waiting? Sometimes the cost is minimal, a slightly delayed response to an email or a day to consider a proposal. Other times, the cost is significant, a missed opportunity or allowing a problem to worsen. Second, what is the cost of acting now? This might include making a decision with incomplete information, responding while emotions are high, or moving forward without proper preparation. Third, what does my intuition tell me? Often, your gut knows whether a situation calls for patience or action before your rational mind catches up. Learning to trust and interpret these intuitive signals is a crucial skill. Controlling situations without revealing intent. One of the most sophisticated applications of deliberate patience is the ability to influence situations while keeping your strategy hidden. This isn't about manipulation or deception, it's about understanding that revealing your intentions too early can undermine your effectiveness. Think about a parent trying to guide a teenager toward a good decision. If the parent simply issues commands, they're likely to encounter resistance. But if they ask thoughtful questions and create space for the teenager to reach their own conclusions, the outcome is often much better. The parent's patience and strategic restraint lead to more effective influence. In professional settings, this might mean waiting for others to suggest the solution you had in mind, rather than proposing it yourself. People are more committed to ideas they feel they've helped create. Your patience in allowing this process to unfold naturally often leads to better outcomes than pushing your agenda directly. The key is to influence the conditions rather than forcing the outcome. Like a gardener who prepares the soil, plants the seeds, and then waits patiently for growth, you can create environments where the outcomes you desire are more likely to emerge naturally. This approach requires tremendous self-discipline and confidence. It means accepting that you won't always get immediate credit for your insights or contributions. But it builds trust, reduces resistance, and often leads to more sustainable results. The patience paradox. Here's something counterintuitive about patience: the more you have, the less you need it. People who are known for their patience rarely find themselves in situations that require it. Why? Because their reputation for thoughtful, measured responses changes how others interact with them. When people know you won't react impulsively, they're more likely to approach you with respect rather than trying to manipulate or pressure you. When others know you take time to consider requests carefully, they tend to make more reasonable requests. Your patience creates a buffer that protects you from many of the situations that would test a less patient person. This is the patience paradox. Developing patience eliminates many situations that would otherwise require patience. It's a virtuous cycle where emotional intelligence creates conditions that make emotional intelligence easier to maintain. Building your patience practice. Like any skill, deliberate patience improves with practice. The goal is to gradually expand your ability to pause, assess, and respond strategically rather than reactively. Here are specific practices that can help you develop this crucial skill. The 5-breath rule. Before responding to any challenging situation, take 5 deep breaths. This simple practice engages your parasympathetic nervous system and gives your prefrontal cortex time to come online. Use this time to ask yourself what outcome you want from this interaction and what response is most likely to achieve it. The 24-hour email rule. For any email that triggers a strong emotional response, wait 24 hours before replying. Write your initial response if it helps you process your feelings, but save it as a draft. When you return to it the next day, you'll almost always write a more effective response. Strategic silence. In conversations, especially tense ones, practice being comfortable with silence. Instead of rushing to fill every pause, allow space for others to think and respond. You'll be amazed at what people reveal when given time and space to express themselves fully. The long view practice. When facing frustrating situations, ask yourself how much this will matter in a week, a month, or a year. This perspective shift often reveals that immediate action is unnecessary and that patience will serve you better. Observation before action. Before entering any important conversation or meeting, take a few minutes to observe the mood, energy, and dynamics in the room. This information can help you adjust your approach and timing for maximum effectiveness. Patience in difficult relationships. Some of the greatest tests of our patience come from difficult relationships, whether with family members, colleagues, or others we can't simply avoid. These relationships offer unique opportunities to develop emotional intelligence because they force us to find ways to interact effectively despite ongoing challenges. In difficult relationships, patience serves multiple functions. First, it prevents you from making the relationship worse through reactive responses. Second, it gives you time to understand the underlying patterns and dynamics at play. Third, it allows you to respond to the person you want them to become rather than the person they're being in the moment. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or accepting unacceptable behavior. It means choosing your battles wisely and responding strategically rather than emotionally. Sometimes this means setting clear boundaries and enforcing them consistently. Other times it means finding ways to work around someone's limitations rather than fighting them directly. The key is to separate the person from their behavior and to remember that you can only control your own actions, not theirs. Your patience creates space for positive change while protecting you from getting pulled into destructive patterns. The timing of trust. Trust is not built in moments of crisis or high emotion, it's built in the quiet spaces between dramatic events. This is where patience plays a crucial role in relationship building. Trust develops slowly, through consistent actions over time, and it requires patience to allow this natural process to unfold. Many people try to accelerate trust by sharing too much too quickly or by pushing for intimacy before the foundation is solid. This approach often backfires, creating discomfort or skepticism rather than connection. The emotionally intelligent person understands that trust has its own timeline and that trying to rush it often delays it. Instead, focus on being consistently reliable in small things. Follow through on minor commitments. Be present in ordinary moments. Show up when you say you will. These small acts of consistency build the foundation of trust more effectively than grand gestures or dramatic declarations. This same principle applies to professional relationships. The colleague who consistently delivers quality work on time builds more trust than the one who occasionally produces brilliant results but is unreliable. The leader who makes thoughtful decisions consistently gains more credibility than the one who makes bold moves that sometimes succeed and sometimes fail spectacularly. Advanced patience strategies. As your patience skills develop, you can begin to employ more sophisticated strategies that combine patience with other aspects of emotional intelligence. Emotional Aikido. This involves using the force of someone's emotion to redirect the interaction rather than meeting it head-on. If someone comes to you angry, instead of getting defensive or angry in return, you can acknowledge their feelings and redirect the conversation toward solutions. Your patience allows you to stay centered while their emotional energy dissipates. Strategic vulnerability. Sometimes, the most powerful response to aggression or manipulation is patient vulnerability. By calmly acknowledging your own feelings or limitations, you can diffuse tension and invite more authentic communication. This requires the patience to sit with discomfort and the confidence to show humanity in difficult moments. The teaching moment. When someone makes a mistake or behaves poorly, your first instinct might be to correct them immediately. But patience allows you to turn these situations into learning opportunities. By asking questions rather than giving answers, you help others discover insights for themselves, which leads to deeper understanding and lasting change. Systemic patience. This involves recognizing that some problems can't be solved directly and require changes to underlying systems or cultures. Instead of repeatedly addressing symptoms, you patiently work to change the conditions that create the problems. This might mean gradually shifting team dynamics, slowly building consensus for change, or consistently modeling the behavior you want to see from others. The compound effect of patience. the benefits of deliberate patience compound over time. Each patient response builds your reputation as someone who can be trusted with sensitive information in difficult situations. Each strategic pause increases your credibility as a thoughtful decision-maker. Each moment of restraint demonstrates emotional maturity that others notice and respect. This compound effect extends to your internal experience as well. As patience becomes more natural, you experience less stress and anxiety. You waste less energy on reactions and regrets. You make fewer mistakes that require fixing later. Your relationships improve, and your influence grows. Perhaps most importantly, patience allows you to become more authentically yourself. When you're not constantly reacting to external pressures and triggers, you have more energy and attention available for pursuing your genuine interests and values. You become the author of your own story rather than a character in someone else's drama. Living with deliberate patience. Mastering deliberate patience is not about becoming passive or indecisive. It's about developing the emotional intelligence to choose your responses based on wisdom rather than impulse. It's about understanding that true strength often lies in restraint, and that the most powerful action is sometimes no action at all. As you practice these principles, remember that patience is not a destination but a journey. There will be times when you react impulsively, when you miss the mark, when you wish you had waited a little longer before responding. These moments are not failures, they're learning opportunities that help you refine your emotional intelligence. The goal is not perfection but progress. Each time you choose patience over impulse, you're building the mental and emotional muscles that will serve you throughout your life. You're developing the capacity to navigate complex situations with grace, to build relationships with intention, and to influence outcomes through wisdom rather than force. In a world that rewards quick reactions and immediate responses, the person who masters deliberate patience has a significant advantage. You become the calm center around which others can find stability. You become the voice of reason in heated discussions. You become the leader others turn to when situations require careful thought and strategic action. This is the power of deliberate patience. It transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who responds to it thoughtfully and strategically. It turns you from a victim of circumstances into an architect of outcomes. And it gives you the emotional intelligence to navigate any situation with wisdom, grace, and effectiveness. The choice is always yours. In every moment, between every stimulus and response, you have the power to pause, breathe, and choose wisdom over impulse. This choice, made consistently over time, will transform not only how you interact with the world, but how the world responds to you. Remember, most people act fast and regret later. But you now have the tools to move with precision, not haste. You understand the art of timing, when to wait, when to strike, and how to control situations without revealing your intent. This is your competitive advantage in a world that has forgotten the power of deliberate patience. Chapter 3: Psychological Warfare and Influence. Every decision is influenced by unseen forces: emotion, perception, manipulation. This chapter dives into how to protect your mind and shape the minds of others through subtle influence, narrative control, and psychological positioning. Introduction: The Invisible Battlefield. In every conversation, negotiation, and interaction, an invisible war is being waged. Not with weapons or force, but with words, emotions, and carefully crafted narratives designed to influence your thoughts and decisions. Most people remain blissfully unaware of this psychological battlefield, making them vulnerable to manipulation while missing opportunities to ethically influence positive outcomes. This chapter will equip you with the knowledge to recognize when your mind is under attack and the skills to defend against psychological manipulation. Equally important, you'll learn how to ethically influence others using the same principles, not to exploit, but to create win-win scenarios, inspire positive change, and communicate more effectively. The distinction between influence and manipulation lies in intent and outcome. Influence seeks mutual benefit and respects the other person's autonomy, while manipulation prioritizes personal gain at others' expense. As we explore these techniques, remember that with great power comes great responsibility. Part 1: Understanding the Weapons of Psychological Warfare. The Architecture of Influence. Human decision-making is far less rational than we'd like to believe. Neuroscience reveals that emotions drive our choices, while logic serves primarily to justify decisions we've already made emotionally. This emotional primacy creates vulnerabilities that skilled manipulators exploit. The human brain operates on several predictable patterns that influence artists understand intimately. We seek consistency between our beliefs and actions, creating cognitive dissonance when they conflict. We're heavily influenced by social proof, what others are doing or thinking. We respond to authority figures, even when their expertise is questionable. We're biased toward reciprocity, feeling obligated to return favors. Understanding these patterns is the first step in both defense and ethical influence. Emotional triggers and exploitation. Master manipulators target specific emotional triggers to bypass rational thinking. Fear is perhaps the most potent weapon in the psychological arsenal. When afraid, people make hasty decisions, often against their best interests. Political campaigns, sales pitches, and propaganda all leverage fear to drive desired behaviors. Anger is another powerful tool. Angry people think less clearly and act more impulsively. Social media algorithms exploit this by promoting outrage-inducing content that keeps users engaged but emotionally destabilized. Recognizing when your anger is being deliberately triggered is crucial for maintaining clear judgment. Hope and desire can be equally manipulative. Get-rich-quick schemes, miracle cures, and too good to be true offers all exploit our hopes for better circumstances. The more desperately we want something, the less critically we evaluate the claims surrounding it. Shame and guilt are subtler but equally effective weapons. Making someone feel bad about their current situation or past decisions creates an opening for influence. You don't want to be the kind of person who is a classic shame-based manipulation tactic. The persuasion pyramid. Effective psychological influence operates on multiple levels simultaneously. At the foundation lies credibility, establishing trust and authority. Without credibility, even the most sophisticated techniques fall flat. This credibility can be earned through demonstrated expertise, borrowed from respected institutions, or manufactured through careful image management. The second level involves emotional connection. People are influenced more by those they like and trust. This connection is built through finding common ground, showing genuine interest in the other person's concerns, and demonstrating empathy. Manipulators fake this connection, while ethical influencers build genuine relationships. The third level is logical framework, providing rational justification for the emotional decision you want someone to make. This isn't about overwhelming with facts, but about providing enough logical support that the person can justify their choice to themselves and others. The apex of the pyramid is the call to action, the specific behavior you want to encourage. This must be clear, achievable, and framed in terms of the other person's benefits rather than your own needs. Part 2. Defensive strategies, protecting your mind. Building mental firewalls. The first line of defense against psychological manipulation is awareness. When you understand how influence works, you become significantly harder to manipulate. This awareness must become automatic, a mental firewall that activates whenever someone is trying to influence your thinking or behavior. Develop the habit of pausing before making any significant decision, especially when you feel pressured to act quickly. Most legitimate opportunities can wait for reflection, while scams and manipulations rely on urgency to prevent critical thinking. When someone says this offer expires today or you need to decide right now, your mental alarms should sound. Question your emotional state during important decisions. Are you feeling unusually fearful, angry, excited, or hopeful? These heightened emotional states make you more susceptible to influence. Take time to let emotions settle before proceeding with significant choices. The critical thinking arsenal. Develop specific questions to ask when someone is trying to influence you. What does this person gain from my decision? What information might they be withholding? What would an impartial observer advise? These questions help you step outside the influence attempt and evaluate it objectively. Seek multiple perspectives before making important decisions. Manipulators try to control information flow, presenting only evidence that supports their position. Actively seek out dissenting views, alternative options, and potential downsides. If someone discourages you from seeking other opinions, that's a major red flag. Learn to recognize and resist social proof manipulation. Just because everyone is doing it doesn't make it right for you. Manipulators often create artificial social proof through fake testimonials, manufactured urgency, only 3 left in stock, or bandwagon appeals. Your decision should be based on your own analysis, not the crowd's behavior. Information warfare defense. In our information-rich environment, controlling what you know becomes a primary battleground. Manipulators use information warfare, selectively presenting facts, using misleading statistics, or overwhelming you with irrelevant data to obscure important truths. Develop media literacy skills. Understand how statistics can be manipulated, how cherry-picked evidence can support almost any position, and how correlation is often presented as causation. When someone presents studies show or research proves, ask to see the actual research and evaluate its methodology and funding sources. Diversify your information sources and actively seek out viewpoints that challenge your existing beliefs. Echo chambers make you more vulnerable to manipulation by reinforcing biases and limiting your perspective. The goal isn't to become cynical, but to become discerning. Part 3: Ethical Influence: Shaping Minds Responsibly. The foundation of ethical influence. Before attempting to influence others, examine your motivations. Are you seeking mutual benefit or personal gain at others' expense? Ethical influence creates value for all parties involved and respects the other person's autonomy to make their own decisions. Build genuine credibility through competence and character. This takes time but creates lasting influence that doesn't require manipulation. Become genuinely expert in your area, deliver on your promises, and act with integrity even when it costs you short-term advantages. Understand the other person's true needs and motivations. Effective influence aligns your goals with their genuine interests. This requires active listening, empathy, and sometimes helping them clarify what they really want versus what they think they want. The art of framing. How you present information significantly impacts how it's received. The same facts can be framed as opportunities or threats, gains or losses, temporary or permanent. Master ethical framers present information in ways that help others see clearly rather than obscuring reality. Use positive framing when possible. Instead of focusing on what someone will lose by not acting, emphasize what they'll gain by taking action. This creates approach motivation rather than avoidance motivation, leading to more sustainable behavior change. Frame choices in terms of the other person's values and priorities. What matters most to them? Security, freedom, recognition, contribution, excitement. Present your proposal in language that resonates with their core values. Storytelling as influence. Humans are storytelling creatures. We understand the world through narratives, and stories bypass analytical defenses while conveying complex ideas emotionally. Master influencers are master storytellers who can weave compelling narratives that illustrate their points. Effective influence stories have relatable characters facing similar challenges to your audience. They show realistic struggles and believable victories. Most importantly, they allow the listener to see themselves as the hero of their own story, with your proposal as a tool for their success. Use metaphors and analogies to make complex concepts accessible. A well-chosen metaphor can instantly clarify confusion and create emotional understanding. Business leaders who describe their companies as ships navigating storms or families working together are using metaphorical influence to shape how people think about their organization. Building consensus and buy-in. The most powerful influence creates the feeling that ideas originated from the influenced person rather than being imposed from outside. This requires involving others in the decision-making process rather than simply telling them what to do. Ask questions that lead people toward your desired conclusions. Instead of stating we need to improve our customer service, ask what do you think our customers really want from us? This Socratic method helps people discover insights for themselves, creating stronger commitment to action. Present multiple options with your preferred choice positioned strategically. When people feel they have choices, they're more likely to commit to the decision. Frame your preferred option as the middle ground between two extremes, or present it alongside obviously inferior alternatives. Part 4. Advanced Techniques: Mastering Psychological Positioning. The psychology of authority. Authority is one of the most powerful influence tools, but it must be established rather than assumed. True authority comes from demonstrated competence, not just titles or credentials. Build authority by consistently delivering valuable insights, making accurate predictions, and solving real problems. Understand the different types of authority. Expert authority comes from knowledge and skill. Moral authority comes from acting with integrity and standing for important principles. Positional authority comes from roles and titles but is the weakest form because it depends on external recognition. Transfer authority when you lack direct expertise. If you're not the expert, align yourself with those who are. Quote respected authorities, cite credible research, and bring in expert voices to support your position. This borrowed authority can be very effective when used honestly. Creating psychological commitment. People are more likely to follow through on commitments they make voluntarily and publicly. This principle of consistency can be used ethically to help others stick to positive decisions they want to make. Get small commitments first. Someone who agrees to a minor request is more likely to agree to larger related requests later. This foot-in-the-door technique works because people want their actions to be consistent with their self-image. Make commitments public and specific. A person who publicly commits to exercising 3 times per week is more likely to follow through than someone who privately decides to get in shape. Public commitments engage our desire to maintain consistency with our stated intentions. The reciprocity principle. Humans have a deep psychological need to reciprocate favors, gifts, and kindness. This reciprocity principle can be used ethically to build relationships and create positive influence cycles. Give first without expectation of immediate return. This genuine generosity creates psychological debt that often results in future cooperation. However, the giving must be authentic. People can sense when generosity is merely a manipulation tactic. Make your assistance valuable and personalized. A favor that required effort, thought, or sacrifice on your part carries more reciprocal weight than something generic or cheap. The key is making the other person feel genuinely helped and appreciated. Social proof and network effects. People look to others for cues about appropriate behavior, especially in uncertain situations. You can ethically leverage social proof by highlighting positive examples and creating visibility around desired behaviors. Share success stories and testimonials from people similar to your audience. When people see others like themselves succeeding with your approach, they're more likely to try it themselves. Make these stories specific and believable rather than generic and hyperbolic. Create opportunities for people to see positive behaviors in action. If you want to encourage team collaboration, publicly recognize and celebrate collaborative efforts. The recognized behavior will increase as others see what's valued and rewarded. Part 5. Narrative Control: Shaping Reality Through Story. The power of dominant narratives. Every organization, relationship, and situation operates within narratives, stories that explain what's happening, why it matters, and what should be done about it. Those who control the dominant narrative wield enormous influence over perceptions and decisions. Identify the current narrative operating in your situation. What story are people telling themselves about the challenges they face, the opportunities available, and the likely outcomes of different choices? Understanding the existing narrative is crucial before attempting to shift it. Challenge limiting narratives with better alternatives. If the dominant story is we're victims of circumstances beyond our control, offer a new narrative: we're capable problem solvers who can create positive change. The new narrative must be both inspiring and believable to gain traction. Crafting compelling counter-narratives. When existing narratives are limiting or destructive, create powerful counter-narratives that offer hope and direction. These alternative stories must acknowledge current reality while pointing toward better possibilities. Use the classic story structure: current situation, what is; complication, what's wrong; resolution, what could be. This structure feels natural and compelling because it mirrors how humans naturally process information and make sense of events. Make yourself and others the heroes of your narratives, not victims or passive observers. Hero narratives inspire action and personal responsibility, while victim narratives encourage helplessness and blame. Frame challenges as adventures to be conquered rather than burdens to be endured. Media and message control. In our connected world, controlling information flow becomes increasingly important for maintaining narrative control. This doesn't mean censorship or deception, but rather strategic communication that emphasizes important truths while minimizing destructive noise. Choose your communication channels strategically. Different audiences receive information through different channels and respond to different messaging styles. Tailor your approach to match how your audience naturally consumes information. Time your communications for maximum impact. Important messages can be overwhelmed by competing information or lost in busy periods. Strategic timing ensures your narrative gets the attention it deserves. Building narrative immunity. Just as you must defend against psychological manipulation, you must also defend against harmful narratives that could limit your potential or distort your perception of reality. Regularly examine the stories you tell yourself about your capabilities, relationships, and future possibilities. Are these narratives empowering or limiting? Based on facts or fears? Updated or outdated? Your internal narratives shape your external reality more than you might realize. Seek out diverse perspectives that challenge your assumptions. Surround yourself with people who think differently and consume media that presents alternative viewpoints. This diversity protects against narrative capture, becoming so trapped in one story that you can't see other possibilities. Part 6. Practical applications and real-world scenarios. Workplace influence and leadership. The modern workplace requires constant influence without formal authority. You must persuade colleagues, motivate team members, and gain buy-in from stakeholders who don't report to you. This requires sophisticated understanding of human psychology and ethical influence techniques. Build influence through value creation rather than political maneuvering. Become the person others turn to for solutions, insights, and reliable execution. This earned influence is more sustainable and effective than influence based on relationships or manipulation. Use collaborative language that makes others feel included in decisions rather than subjected to them. What if we tried? Works better than you should. This inclusive approach reduces resistance and increases buy-in. Personal relationships and family dynamics. Influence in personal relationships requires extra care because the stakes are higher and the relationships are ongoing. Manipulation can destroy trust and damage relationships permanently, while ethical influence can strengthen bonds and create mutual growth. Focus on understanding rather than winning. In personal relationships, being right is less important than being connected. Seek to understand the other person's perspective before trying to change it. This understanding often reveals win-win solutions that weren't initially apparent. Model the behavior you want to see rather than demanding it. People are more influenced by consistent actions than by words. If you want more honesty in your relationship, be more honest yourself. If you want more appreciation, show more appreciation. Negotiation and conflict resolution. Every negotiation involves psychological influence, and mastering these skills can dramatically improve your outcomes while maintaining good relationships with counterparts. Separate people from positions by understanding the underlying interests and needs driving each party's stance. Someone demanding a higher salary might actually need more recognition, flexibility, or growth opportunities. Addressing root needs often creates better solutions than fighting over positions. Use the principle of contrast to make your proposals seem more reasonable. Present your ideal outcome first, then compromise to your actual goal. This makes your real position seem generous and reasonable by comparison. Conclusion: the responsibility of influence. With understanding comes responsibility. Now that you understand how psychological influence works, you have an obligation to use this knowledge ethically and to help others defend against manipulation. The techniques in this chapter are tools. They can be used to build or destroy, to help or harm, to create value or extract it. Your character and intentions determine whether you become a positive influence or a manipulator. Choose to use these skills to create win-win outcomes, to help others make better decisions, and to contribute to a more honest and ethical world. Remember that true influence is not about getting people to do what you want, but about helping them discover what they really want and supporting them in achieving it. When your goals align with others' genuine interests, influence becomes collaboration rather than manipulation. The invisible battlefield of psychological warfare will continue to rage around you. But now you're equipped with both armor to protect yourself and weapons to fight for positive change. Use both wisely, and you'll find that ethical influence not only achieves better results but also builds the trust and relationships that make life meaningful. The mind is indeed a battlefield, but it doesn't have to be a zero-sum war. With skill, integrity, and wisdom, you can help create a world where influence serves to elevate everyone involved. I hope this gave you something to think about today. Dr. Julian Vance has been with you all the way. And always remember, keep learning. Keep pushing forward. Who stops reading, stops growing.